Hello YouTube and hello 9th Age community. This is Charles with Evershade Gaming coming in with the third battle report for this YouTube channel. Today I have a game against Beast Turds that I played earlier this week. It's a 1.3 game and we're playing at 5,000 points. So let's look at the lists. I'm playing a similar list to what I played last time. I pretty much just tweaked my core a little bit and gave shields to my Dark Riders, and I dropped the bunker of Legionnaires for the altar down to just 15, the minimum size for the unit, and I added one more Executioner in. And I did take Wizard Master off of my Oracle, not that I didn't like it, but I wanted that extra Executioner body, and I gave her the Ring of Fire to make up the points. The spells I got for this game were 4, 1, 3, and a tribute spell from Alchemy. So pretty good spells overall. I like the Word of Iron buff for pretty much all my infantry. It's not too bad on. It kind of could help negate some of the impact hits. But unfortunately, this game doesn't go very long, and magic was not very impactful. My opponent's playing the ever-powerful, maybe too OP, Beast Turds. And in his list, he's got a Beast Lord on a Razor Tusk chariot, and he's actually got all his characters on chariots. And he took a Wizard Master on his Soothsayer so that he could get the Dark Rain, and then he's got the raiding chariots from Special into Core because he took 3 chariots. Big block of the Wild Horns, and then 2 Centaurs, and another Razor Tusk chariot. And then he has 2 Gore-Tex, 2 Jabberwocks, and 2 15 packs of Ambushing Wild Horns. I can't believe those guys are only 200 points, those small little 15 packs. It's awesome. And for his spells, he just has 2 spells on that Wizard Master. He's got Whispers of the Veil from Evocation, and he also picks up Ancestral Aid, which doesn't really help him much considering he already has a lot of rerolls to hit everywhere in his army. But that's okay. So this is what the board looks like. Those 2 pieces of white paper we treated as fields for this game. This is the number 5 ETC map that we're playing on. We just kind of rolled a 2d6 and a d3, and I mean if we got 666 we would have re-rolled. And we're playing Frontline Clash, and we have the secure target as our objective, which really won't come into play because, again, this game is going to be really short. It's a little bit hard to see the other orange marker. One's in the middle of the board. One is just above that white piece of paper, the field. So those are the 2 objectives for the game, and now we'll look at my opponent's deployment. This is the right side of my opponent's board. This is after Vanguards. He's Vanguarded up his Centaurs. He's got it looks like a Cyclops, but he's playing it as a Gore-Tex, and then he has one of his Razor Tusk chariots and a Jabberwock, and he's got his big unit of Wild Horns, and I believe that's his BSB on a chariot just outside of the frame of the picture, but we'll look at the other side of his deployment. He's got another Jabberwock on the left, and then that is his Vanguarded Centaurs. They were up 12, and they just kind of sneak up a little bit to go past the hill, or be right behind the hill. Another Gore-Tex, his General on a Razor Tusk chariot, and then his Shaman and his 3. That was actually his 3 chariots in that picture. And his BSB is behind to the right of the 3 chariots. So he's got a tough army. He's got those 2 ambushers. He's got a great list, honestly. And this is my deployment. So I actually back up my Dark Riders because I dropped everything to go first. And by go first, I mean I actually chose to go second, because when you play against Beast Turds with Dark Rain and you have shooting, you almost have to go second if you want that shooting to do anything on your turn 1. So I backed up my Dark Riders, and there's my Kraken, my Legionnaires with my Dread Prince, and then my Bunker Legionnaires with the Divine Altar with my BSB on it, and my Oracle with 4 spells. And then to the left of the Divine Altar, I have my Harpies in front of my Executioner block. It's 30 Executioner to the Stalker standard. I have my Raptor Chariot playing defense, trying to maybe pick off the ambushers as they come on. My 2 bolt throwers, my hunting chariot, and then again I backed up my dark riders to make it harder for his centaurs to kill them with his throwing weapons. So my opponent gets to go first, and this is his movement at the top of turn 1. So he moves up his centaurs. They can just get in range to throw their throwing weapons at those dark riders. Thankfully, they will be at long range and double shots. And then he moves up quite aggressively with his Jabberwock, with his Gore Attack, and with the Razor Tusk Chariot right behind him, which is not looking good for me because those monsters are fast with that +1 to charge from the Razor Tusk Chariot. His center moves up a little bit slower, but still pretty aggressively. He turns that bus of wild horns into a horde of wild horns, and everything just gets close. He moves the Gore Attack up quite aggressively too, because I was hoping the Kraken and the Gore Attack could just kill each other, and then the Kraken wins on being cheaper monster, but that does not work out for me. And over here, he brings up his Jabberwock quite aggressively, and his centaurs as well. And his centaurs are within range to throw the throwing weapons, just within range. And we go to the magic phase, and my opponent has a nice magic phase. I think he rolled 7, and we both didn't channel, so he has about 4 dice. He throws 2 dice at this totem to get the chariots in a defense 6 and distracting, and he only I think he even just rolled a 3, and it wasn't worth throwing 1 dice to stop it, so I let him get that buff off. And then with the rest of his 5 dice, he throws it at the Direwolf totem to give the Gore Attack plus D3 to its charge and plus 3 initiative. And I throw my dice at it, but he had a high roll, and I could not stop that. And in my opponent's shooting phase, he just has the 2 centaur units, and due to it being long range and doubles, he does 1 wound on 1 dark rider unit, but it wasn't really significant. So at the top of turn 1, charges. I charge both my dark riders into his centaurs, and this one doesn't take any stand and shoot hits, which is great because again, long range, double tap, charging. He needs 7s to hit, so it's unlikely for him to get those hit. This picture is just showing the 4 Dark Riders. They took 1 wound on his turn 1. They make their charge into the centaurs. And then this is really sad. The hunting chariot was 12 inches away, and I couldn't really get it out of the charge arc of the Gore Attack on the flank, so I decided I would just hit the Jabberwock. With it being only toughness 5 and d6 plus 1 impact hits, there's a good chance of me not killing it, but at least beating it in combat and overrunning into his Razor Tusk Chariot and doing some more damage there. But I rolled trip 1s and fail. And then in my shooting, the 2 bolt throwers, despite the dark rain, thankfully they both hit on 4s on the Jabberwock, and they do 2 wounds apiece. So pretty good. But obviously it would have been nice to take off a model turn 1, because it's still sitting there with 1 wound. It still presents quite a bit of a challenge, as I can make charges on those bolt throwers still. It's not very far away. And in combat, things go horribly as well. I charge in, and I have 5 attacks, and I actually have a Knob General in this list. So I have Hatred on these guys, and I think I hit 4 attacks, which is kind of a little low, and I only do 1 wound with the Dark Riders. The horses do 1 wound, but the horses are at the same initiative these guys because they got parried weapons, and he even didn't get Hatred, and he kills all of them. I mean, no armor saves. Pretty much the same thing happens over here. I do 1 wound with the Dark Riders, 1 wound with the horse. He kills 3. I make I have shields on these guys, so these guys got 4 up armor saves. But they still crumble to these guys, and over here it ends up being a tie, because he kills 3 and I killed 2 and I had a charge. And neither of us have banners, so we just sit there. On his turn, he charges the Gortak into the Kraken. He actually didn't even need the totem. He just rolled like a 10 for the charge. And he attempts to charge the Jabberwock into the flank of the Kraken, but he fails that charge. And then he didn't pass over his centaurs. He rolled really low for that charge. And in the middle, he charges 4 chariots and these executioners. So the 3 chariots in the middle, I believe they were 18 inches away. They were 17 inches away. So normally he needs a 10, but because he has the +1 to charge, he only needs a 9. He gets that charge. He only takes 3 wounds for going over that wall. And the Razor Tusk Chariot also was like 17 away, and it makes it too. So not terribly long charges, but he makes them. And then over here, the Gortak was like a little bit over 13 inches away, and he wanted to charge the flank of the Executioners because I had just poor positioning here, and he fails that charge, thankfully, by it was a little over 13. He rolled 13 with the movement and his charge, and then the Jabberwock also fails the charge against Bolt Thrower. And the Centaurs move up to pick on the Hunting Chariot. And this is the rest of the movement. He just kind of moves up his center, kind of getting in range to pile in with the rest of his units. And one of his units does ambush on, the other one fails. So this is what it's looking like at the top of turn 2 movement. In the magic phase, my opponent gets decent amount of dice. I think he gets another 8 dice, 8 to 5 or something like that. I believe he casts a totem somewhere. He doesn't cast it in this combat, but he casts a totem somewhere, and either I dispel it, or then he puts all of his dice into Whispers of the Veil onto the Executioners. And he does get that off. He miscasts, but he doesn't take any damage because he's on a chariot. And he can only take 4 possible wounds, and he's T4, and it was only strength 4, so takes no wounds from his miscast. In combat, I do kill one more centaur, but he kills the Dark Rider, and then he reforms. And then in the Gortak and Kraken combat, I hit 3 times, I wound 2 times, and I only do 3 wounds with multiple wounds. He passes his Hatred Chest, and he hits twice in the first round, which I was like, okay. And then he hits 4 more times in the second one, and he does 4 wounds, and he gets a lethal strike, so he gets a wound back. So that thing is sitting there with 4 wounds, and I have a dead Kraken. And then we go to the Executioner combat, and my opponent's luck is just amazing this game. He rolls only 2 impact hits for the Razor Tusk Chariot, but the 3 core chariots roll up 17 impact hits. And when it's all said and done, there's 16 dead Executioners before combat even happens. And the Altar is using the Lethal Strike R this turn, so the Executioners do have reroll soon. So I ended up putting 11 Executioners on the core chariots because I want to try and just delete the unit, and I put 4 on the Razor Tusk Chariot. And I think there was a miscommunication between my opponent because I know I only missed 1 attack, even with the -2 weapon skill from Whispers of the Veil. I still roll really well, and then I'm wounding on 2s, rerolling my 1s. So I know I did at least 9 wounds to the core chariots. You're going to see a picture where there's still 1 left. I think that was a mistake on my opponent's part. It's not going to affect the outcome of the game. And I do 4 wounds to the Razor Tusk Chariot, so I almost kill all the chariots, but I just don't have enough attacks. So I lost so many to those impact hits. So when it's all said and done, I'm still down in combat res, and I roll an 11 for the first dice for my first leadership test. And a reroll, and I get a 10, and I'm like, thank goodness, because they were steadfast too. So, and then I test to reform them, and I put them like this, and I get ready to start my turn, and I actually charge the Raptor Chariot at his centaurs, and I make it on like an 11. And it is at this point I realized that we had Whispers of the Veil up, and I needed a 9. I needed a 9. So I actually failed with these Executioners. They have the Swiss Stride Banner as well, or the Stalker Standard, and they rolled an 11, and they just bounce off the table through that cold one, through that Raptor Chariot. And at that point, you know, it's bottom of turn 2, and I just called it. I don't normally like to do that, but it just, you know, I moved up my Harpies to chaff my opponent. You know, I started doing some stuff for my turn 2, and then I took it back, and I was like, you know, I didn't even pass the leadership test. So this is the end slide, and he's just, everything's piling in. And best case scenario for me at this point is, you know, my opponent would let me still have that Raptor Chariot getting into his Centaurs. I might clean up those monsters on the right, but there's just no way I can deal with all those blocks and the rest of the monsters. So that's the end of the game. So the end result is a Beast Herds massacre. They just wiped the Dread Elves. I mean, I forfeited at the bottom of turn 2. So at the end of the, you know, at the end of any bad game, you have to ask yourself a couple of questions. The first question is, what could I have done better? Because obviously I probably made some mistakes in this game. I think the most obvious one to me is I should have ignored the ambushers and put my Raptor Chariot further so that it could threaten those monsters. Because turn 1, I know he gets turn 1 and he gets to really pile those monsters forward. And if the Raptor Chariot was deployed further up, that would at least give me some threat range. I don't think a Raptor Chariot can kill a Gortak, even with, you know, Strength 5 impact hits and 2 Strength 6 lance attacks on the charge. I just don't think you'll do enough wounds, and the Gortak will turn around and, you know, mince the Raptor Chariot with its Strength 6 and the hatred and everything. So it could still threaten the Jabberwock, however, and the Chariot, but I don't think it could threaten the Gortak. So maybe, you know, putting my Raptor Chariot up further would have been more helpful. I could have, that says use my chaff turn 2 on the slide. It really should say turn 1, actually. Could have thrown my chaff up turn 1. I find myself throwing my Harpies away almost every game, turn 1 or turn 2. And I guess I've been thinking, I feel like I need to hold them back a turn longer. But in this case, it might have been necessary to block up that center and then move up my everything closer. But he still had so many monsters on the flanks, I don't know if that would have mattered. I felt comfortable with my positioning and my deployment. I have a hard time playing against, as a Dread Elf player, I have a hard time playing against Beast Herds with the Dark Rain magic item, because I find having to choose the turn, you know, the bottom of turn, or going second instead of going first, it's just really hard to deal with as a Dread Elf player, which in almost any game I'd rather go first. So I felt comfortable with my deployment. And then, what the things that could have gone better is the other question. And this is a little bit of me moaning and lamenting here, but my turn 1 magic was really poor. I got 7 or 8 dice, but my opponent just pretty much matched, or, you know, he just beat all my rolls. I rolled low for my first spell, and he only had to use, you know, the same amount of dice or less, and then I got the Silver Spear off onto his general. And it just didn't even wound. And he has the Bluffer's Helm, but I didn't even get to reroll it. I just failed to wound it on a 2 because he's T5, the first shot. So, and then, yeah, so my magic turn 1 was dismal, and my turn 1 charges were so bad. Missing that chariot, missing that 12-inch charge was awful. But the Dark Raiders both losing both of those combats to the Centaurs. I mean, I know Centaurs are good too, but I thought I should have gone in, done a couple more wounds, been able to make a couple saves, you know, still lose some models, maybe beat them by 1 or 2, and hopefully run them down. But that's not how the dice rolled, and that's why we play the game. So at the end of this video, I'm just going to take a couple more minutes, and I'm going to answer the question at the top of the slide. Are beast herds too OP? And I have a objectified experience with beast herds. I think they are a very strong army. They've improved a lot in the 9th age between every increment. So I'm really not going to answer the question. I'm just going to give some feedback on a few problems I see in the book. And these are the eyes that are haunting my dreams after this game. Those strong, strong beasters with those scary, scary, spooky eyes. So the first thing I have a problem with in the Beast Herds book is the Beast Axe. It's a really good mundane item, and the rules are really solid. +1 strength, strike at initiative 0, so a nice buff little, hex while you're using that item, and then the +1 armor save is also really good. My only problem that I have with it is that you can take it on a chariot with your character. I think that as we're seeing with the 1.2 and 1.3 releases, we have to make tough decisions about how we build our characters. Magic item prices have gone up in armor and in talismans, and it's a lot harder to build a defensive character who has great saves and who can deal out the punishment close combat. I see the Beast Axe as a sort of cop-out for the Beast Herds. It's a way for them to have... I mean, Strength 6 isn't crazy good on a character, but it's just where you need to be to deal damage to monsters and other characters. And with Beast Lords having Hatred, Innate, they're just great in combat, and then they're really defensive. And they don't even need to spend all their magic, their magic element to have a great defense on a chariot. To have a 1-up, 4-up, reroll wounds against them. It's really strong. Again, I think the chariots are appropriately costed. I think the magic items are getting more appropriately costed, especially the Bluffer's Helm being at 80 points now. But I just think the Beast Axe appropriately costed again, but maybe infantry only. Because then Beast Lords have to make harder decisions if they want good saves. If they want to have a 1-up, they're going to have to take the Hardened Shield or the Dragon Helm. And then they're still gonna have to try and sneak into magic. It's harder to build characters these days in 1.2 and 1.3. And I think Beast Swords just have a solid build with the Beast Axe, Bluffer's Helm, Talisman of Preservation, and I think it's too good. It's too obvious. It's a too obvious choice for them. Because again, I look at the pack leaders and I look at the Beast Lord. I think everything is well accosted. The chariot's 180 points is quite expensive. It does come with the +1 automatically, I think, and by +1 I mean the +1 to charge bonus within 6 inches. And then the Beast Axe is 40 points. I think that's costed. It's better than the Great Weapon, and it's more expensive than it. And a Lance is 30 points. That's pretty even with the Great Weapon. So I think they're well accosted there. This made me laugh though. Throwing weapons are 6 points. That is amazing. On a Strength 5 Lord with BS4, you can get a 6-point throwing weapons. Why is that even a thing? Why is it so cheap? That bothered me just looking at those. But that's a small, minor thing. The only other unit that I have a problem with that I played against is it bothers me that raiding chariots get that leadership 8 from that Longhorn. I think it's quite fluffy to have the Wildhorn and the Longhorn both riding on the chariot, and I think it's quite fun and quite cool. But in an army where leadership is one of the weaknesses, I don't think core units should have leadership 8. That's just my opinion. I don't think you see a lot of low leadership armies with leadership 8 units in general. And my last critique of the Beast Herds, I know they put core back up to 20%. It was at 15. I think it just needs to go back up to 25. Now that you can take both the Warhounds, a unit of big Warhounds is 104 points, or 108 points. It's so cheap. So cheap for a core chaffing unit. And again, you can put raiding chariots in core 2. 3 chariots is a great unit. They got a lot of impact hits. They're really dangerous on the charge. Not too expensive. I don't really see why this army shouldn't go back up to 25% core. Especially with 40% monsters, because you're just going to still see a lot of monsters. tough characters, tough monsters, minimum core, and you know, the nice little fun stuff from Special. So that's just my critiques. Thank you to all who are watching and subscribing, and I have a lot of Dead Elves I gotta go get painted and get redeemed in another game. Thank you. Bye, everybody.